Hi guys, this is Mr. Arthur with our third week's learning and the topic human and health. Today we're looking at temperature and health. So our learning outcomes for today are to go over our three types of thermometer you learned about last week. We need to find out about the effects of increasing our body temperature or lowering our body temperature. And finally, we're going to give you some resources to help you make your own notes using this video and a resource so you can create notes to study from. And when you're ready, we're going to give you a Google form so that you can test your knowledge. So to begin with, let's look at last week's tasks. So you were asked to complete 5 questions last week, and those questions were in the video. The first one is what we mean by the term physiology. So that, of course, is the study of the human body and how it works. That was in your notes. Question 2, the answer was a clinical thermometer. Okay, so 3 types of thermometer, but a clinical one is a low-tech method of measuring temperature. A pulsometer is a high-tech way of measuring your pulse rate. The low-tech advantage is that low-tech equipment is cheap, but the high-tech disadvantage is the opposite. If it's high-tech, then it's expensive. Okay, so that was a summary of last week's learning. So we looked at how you record body temperature, and we said there's 3 types of thermometer. You have the clinical thermometer, which I said was a low-tech, cheap one. There is a liquid crystal thermometer, which you can place on your skin, and the crystals change colour to show you which temperature you are at. And our most accurate high-tech thermometer is the digital thermometer. So though it's expensive, it is very accurate. Okay, so normal body temperature of humans is 37 degrees Celsius. The degrees Celsius is a little circle and the capital C, and that is the British unit that we use. Some of the slides and some things you can look online might say F for Fahrenheit, which is what like Americans will use. The picture on the left there is an image of the heat that your body is giving off all of the time. So we're constantly producing heat energy and giving it off. Now, the normal human temperature is 37, and there's conditions that may cause this to increase or decrease. And the picture on the right is quite familiar from the news at the moment, because lots of airports and things, your body temperature is being checked, because one of the symptoms of possible coronavirus is an increase in body temperature. So again, we can monitor body temperature for a variety of different means for our health. In this topic, we can break down temperature and health into 3 parts. We're going to say why body temperature is important for our health. We're going to say how the body monitors its own body temperature. And we're going to talk about the ways in which the body can try and alter the body temperature to keep it at the normal 37 degrees. Okay, so 3 things you can break in your head this lesson into. Okay, so the basics. We said a normal body temperature here in a clinical thermometer is 37 degrees. Now, if we start to fall below that, you'll see there that it says mild hypothermia, and you've probably heard of hypothermia before. So you start to get too cold, you start to get pale, kind of blue in the face, you start to shiver, and that's the body reacting to it. And as your temperature keeps dropping, it goes from moderate to deep hypothermia, and that can actually lead to you falling into a coma and then dying. So it's quite serious. If your temperature falls, even something like 5 degrees, that can cause death. Okay, this is in Fahrenheit, but it can show you both ways. In the middle in the green, we have that kind of normal. Now it's in Fahrenheit, but that's 37 degrees. As we just spoke about, if you fall below into severe hypothermia, you can lose consciousness and death. However, if temperature also increases up into this yellow and red area, that isn't hypothermia, what we call hyperthermia. Now, more commonly in this course, we're going to refer to hyperthermia as heat stroke. Okay? If you get heat stroke, there are certain symptoms, and if you get too hot, again, it can lead to you passing out and dying. So it's quite serious if our body temperature changes too much. In terms of heat stroke, there's a poster here showing you some of the signs and symptoms. So again, we talked about how you can lose consciousness. You might get confused, you can get dizzy and have a headache. You can actually stop sweating because you've ran out of fluids. You can become quite weak. There are ways to prevent that is to shade yourself from the sun, to drink lots of fluids, to avoid things like alcohol, and to have a cold shower, which will try to lower your body temperature back down to that safe zone of 37 degrees. Okay? And there's another poster showing you some of the things that happen. And we're going to look at why we shiver to try and generate heat to increase our body temperature, and why you look blue in the face when you get too cold. And it's actually because there's less blood flow near the skin, and it's your red blood that makes you normally look kind of red in the face. So if your body temperature increases above 37 and you approach the high 30s or 40 degrees, that's when you're going to start to suffer heat stroke. And this requires immediate medical attention as it can lead to serious fever, it can lead to death. So we have to do things to bring the temperature back down to the safety of 37. Now the same can be said if we decrease too much. Again, 37 is good. If it falls down below 35 degrees, then you have this condition called hypothermia, 35 degrees. Again, babies and the elderly, they can be more prone to hypothermia as they are not as good at generating body heat, which is what the body tries to do to bring it back up to 37 degrees. Okay, it's important then if you pause this video and then you can make notes or use this part of the video to complete the notes in the resource we provided you so that you know these 3 bullet points. Okay, so how does our body know if it's at the correct temperature? Well, rather than the things like the clinical thermometer or digital thermometer which students have made for us to check ourselves, your brain's smart, and part of the brain is designed to actually monitor the temperature of your blood. And by monitoring the temperature of your blood, the brain's detecting any changes in your body temperature. Okay, so the brain is what detects the changes in body temperature. Now, what do you think happens if you get too cold? Well, you already probably know you might go a bit blue in the face and you might shiver. If you get too hot, you probably know that you're going to get quite red in the face. So an opposite reaction. And instead of shivering, you're going to sweat lots. Okay? So, pausing this video, I have a summary of the information that's going to follow. On the left, we're looking at a decrease in body temperature. So a decrease in body temperature means you're too cold. So this means you're going to shiver. Why, if you ask to explain, is because it generates heat. The blood vessels, the little tubes like the arteries in your body that help the blood travel around your body, they are not going to move. They're still in your skin, but they can become narrower. So if you imagine it, it's like that wide, it's going to become narrower and narrower. Now, what effects is that going to have on the blood? Well, if it's narrower, less blood can flow through the vessel. So when you're too cold, your blood vessels narrow, and this reduces the blood flow near the skin. If you're asked to explain that, you're blue in the face because there's less blood near your skin because the vessels have become narrower. That prevents you from losing heat because your body is always losing heat from the blood. Okay? So to recap, blood vessels become narrower, this reduces blood flow, and that reduces heat loss. Final thing, if you're cold, you might notice on your arms that the hairs stand up. Now they stand up to try and trap a layer of invisible air. And that air, that layer of air, is going to insulate you. And again, that insulation prevents heat loss. Okay, so what happens if we go above 37 degrees? So if our body temperature increases, we're going to sweat. Now you know that, but why? Well, the sweat that forms in your skin, as it evaporates, so the liquid turns into a gas, that actually takes heat away with it. So by your sweat evaporating, it cools down the body. Blood vessels do the opposite. This time your blood vessels become wider, okay? So they were narrower before, now they're wider. Not larger, not smaller, not longer, but used narrower and wider. If they become wider, then of course there's going to be an increase in blood flow. So you look red in the face because there's more blood flowing near the skin. This increases the heat loss from your blood, which helps bring your body temperature back down. And finally, of course, you don't want your hair standing up this time. You don't want insulation, so your hairs lie flat when you've got an increase in body temperature. Okay, so if the body temperature increases, the skin can take the following actions. So what we just talked about, you can increase the rate of sweating. They can relax the muscle hairs so that the hairs lie flat. And vasodilation is a very fancy word for dilation, meaning that it becomes wider. So again, increased blood flow, your face looks red because you've got more blood near the skin and you increase your heat loss. And that's what we're seeing in this picture here. The blood near your skin loses heat through the skin. So the more blood that flows near the skin, the more heat you're going to lose. And we can control that by the width of the blood vessels. If you're too cold, your hairs are going to stand up, okay? You're going to reduce sweating and you get vasoconstriction. So again, that's a fancy term for the blood vessels getting narrower. And again, narrower means less blood flow to the skin, so less heat loss. Here you can see in the picture, it's much narrower, so there's much less blood flowing near the skin, so you're getting very little heat loss. And by losing less heat, you're hoping the body temperature is going to help get back up to 37 degrees. again, you can see this more closely on the hairs on your own arm. If they're standing up, they're trapping air. That means you're too cold. You're trying to reduce heat loss. If they're lying flat, it's because probably you're too hot and it's happy to lose heat. Other responses, we talked about shivering. Shivering means your muscles are going to move, and as they rub together, almost like imagine rubbing your hands together, it generates heat. Your muscle cells rubbing together also generate heat, so it helps to increase your body temperature. Your metabolic rate. The metabolism is your body's all the chemical reactions in the body. And by increasing the rate of those chemical reactions so that more are happening, then actually we can generate more heat energy. But you burn through all your sources. So if you're getting things like hypothermia and you get too cold, you're shivering, your metabolism increases, but it burns up all your stored food. Okay, so that's why again you can run out of energy and become faint. Right, so if you've understood this lesson, you'll be able to talk about the 3 different types of thermometers. You'll be able to tell me that the digital thermometer is the most accurate. You should know that human body temperature is 37 degrees, and if it rises above 37 degrees, if it goes up towards 40 degrees, you get heat stroke. And if it falls down to like 35 degrees, you can get hypothermia. You should now know that the brain is the part of the body that monitors the body temperature, and that the brain can send messages to the skin to try and either increase the body temperature if you're below 37 or decrease the body temperature if you're above 37. We talked about decreasing body temperature if you're too hot by increasing sweating, by increasing blood flow near the surface of the skin, and by the hairs lying flat. We said if your temperature decreases and you need to increase it back up, then the body's going to increase your body temperature by shivering. It's going to increase your metabolic rate, and it's going to decrease the blood flow near the skin, so you lose less heat energy so that it can start to come up, and your hairs are going to stand up to provide more insulation by trapping air, which is also going to help you stop losing heat. Okay, that's the end of this lesson. So rewind it and watch it as often as you want. Use this video to help complete the notes that we've given you, and then when you're ready, try the questions in the Google form. Good luck.